Chosen one, the moment they pulled your records, every agent in that room went silent, briefcases still, mouths closed. This is confirmation, not imagination. Somewhere under fluorescent lights, your file loaded and the chatter died. Your profile was meant to be routine, a tidy line item, but the data refused to cooperate. Patterns started appearing that made no sense to them, searches that didn't match any profile in their database, behavior that defied every algorithm they've developed, movements that seemed almost strategic. And the deeper they dug, the more confusing everything became, because your records don't tell a story, your records tell a prophecy. Every piece of data contradicts the last. Every trail leads to a dead end. Every attempt to profile you results in error messages and blank screens. You want to know what really scared them. It wasn't your anger. It wasn't your intensity. It wasn't even your refusal to conform. It was your silence, the fact that you stopped broadcasting, that you stopped feeding the algorithm, that you stopped playing their engagement games. You went dark, not out of fear but out of awakening. You realized that the loudest voices are the easiest to track, the most visible targets are the easiest to hit, so you started learning how to move differently, think differently, exist differently, and now when they pull your records, what appears is a mind that learned to operate outside every framework they've built, a consciousness that evolved beyond every control mechanism they've designed. You studied the system while pretending to be part of it. You learned the rules by breaking them quietly. You transformed pain into precision, rage into strategy, isolation into power. And that transformation is what makes you dangerous, because you're not fighting the system, you're outgrowing it. Let me tell you what happened in that room when your file loaded. First came confusion. The expectation was simple, a clear narrative, a linear progression, a predictable arc. Troubled beginning, rebellious middle, eventual conformity or collapse. But your records don't follow that script. Instead, deletion points appear, missing years, accounts that vanished, identities that shifted, a person who seemed to die and resurrect multiple times without explanation. You were there, then gone, then back, but different, evolved, unrecognizable. Your search histories suggest deep research into psychology, manipulation, power dynamics, human behavior, system vulnerabilities, not in a criminal way, but in a "this person is studying us while we study them" way. And that's when the second phase hit them. Fear. Not the kind of fear you feel watching a horror movie, the kind of fear you feel when you realize the thing you thought you were hunting has been watching you the whole time. When you understand that the subject you've been analyzing is steps ahead of you, has predicted your every move, and is playing a game you don't even understand yet. They started cross-referencing your data with known patterns, disruptors, hackers, activists, influencers, outliers. But you don't fit any category. You're not part of any movement, not aligned with any ideology, not following any known playbook. You're a category of one, a classification error, a file that doesn't belong in any existing folder. They ran psychological profiles. They calculated behavioral predictions. They completed threat assessments. Every single model came back with the same result: inconclusive, not because the data is insufficient, but because the data doesn't make sense. It's like trying to predict the ocean by studying a single wave. You're not following patterns, you're creating them. You're not responding to their stimuli, you're generating new variables they never accounted for. You're not in their experiment, you're rewriting the hypothesis. And the analysts, the ones trained to find answers, to solve puzzles, to decode human behavior, they sit there staring at screens full of question marks. Here's what really broke their confidence. Evidence of self-education at a level that doesn't match your official records. Knowledge acquisition that suggests years of focused study in areas you were never formally trained in. Understanding of systems, psychology, influence, power structures that typically takes decades to develop. but you did it quietly, privately, without credentials or recognition. You taught yourself to think like them, to see like them, to predict like them, and then you went further. You learned to think beyond them. The timestamps show activity in the early morning hours, research into topics that don't seem to connect until suddenly they do. The patterns reveal someone reverse engineering reality itself, deconstructing social systems down to their foundation, understanding the machinery behind the curtain, and the terrifying part for them, you never announced it. You never bragged about your discoveries. You never sought validation or applause. You just learned, absorbed, evolved, and kept moving forward. The analysts are used to people who want to be seen, who crave attention, who broadcast their awakening like it's a performance. But you went silent and grew in the dark, so they started searching for your weaknesses, the leverage points, the pressure zones where they could apply force and make you bend. They hunted for addictions, dependencies, emotional vulnerabilities, financial stress, relationship drama, and what they found was nothing they could use. Not because you're perfect, far from it, but because you've already been through the fire, you've already faced your demons, you've already survived your collapse, you've already died your deaths and come back stronger. The things they use to control others, shame, fear, isolation, rejection, you've already weaponized those against yourself and survived. You turned every wound into armor, every betrayal into education, every loss into fuel. They can't threaten you with isolation because you've mastered solitude. They can't manipulate you with fear because you've already faced worse than anything they could threaten you with. They can't buy you because you've learned to need less. They can't shame you because you've already been to hell and took notes. You're not unbreakable, but you're uncontrollable, and that's infinitely more dangerous to a system built on control. If these words stirred your consciousness, hype this video to help more chosen ones awaken to this. So now in that room with your file still open on multiple screens, someone finally asks the question everyone's thinking: what do we do with this one? And the silence that follows is your victory, because the fact that they don't have an answer, that no protocol exists, no procedure applies, no established response works, that's proof of your evolution. You've become something their system wasn't designed to handle. Not a criminal, not a threat in the traditional sense, but an anomaly, a consciousness that slipped through the cracks and came back wielding knowledge they never intended for you to have. They built a machine to keep people asleep, distracted, divided, dependent, and you woke up. Not just woke up, you stayed awake, and now you're operating at a frequency they can't jam, on a wavelength they can't intercept, with a logic they can't decode. You didn't break their rules, you transcended their entire game. They found evidence of pattern recognition at an almost supernatural level. You started seeing things before they happened, not through mysticism, but through observation so precise it looked prophetic. You learned how people move, how systems function, how narratives get constructed. You learned to read body language like code, to interpret silence like scripture, to see manipulation before it landed. The records show you predicting outcomes weeks, sometimes months in advance. Not lucky guesses, but calculated projections based on deep pattern analysis you conducted in silence. You studied human nature while others studied trends. You learned the architecture of reality while others consumed entertainment. And now you move through the world like someone who's read ahead in the script. Who knows how scenes end before they play out? Who sees the strings before the puppet moves? That's what creates fear in them, not that you're dangerous, but that you're awake in a world they designed to keep everyone sleeping. They also found something else, something that made the senior analysts pause and exchange glances, evidence of real influence. Not the cheap kind measured in followers and likes and engagement metrics. Real influence, the kind that shifts conversations, changes minds, plants seeds that grow in the dark. They found traces of your words being repeated by people who don't even know your name, your ideas being shared in circles you've never entered, your perspective spreading like code through networks you're not part of. People who've never met you are quoting your philosophy. Strangers are adopting your frameworks. Your thoughts are traveling further than your identity. You're not famous, but you're infectious. You're not visible, but you're everywhere. You've mastered the art of impact without identity, power without presence, legacy without ego. And that's the influence they can't track, can't monitor, can't control, because it's not about you anymore. It's about what you've unleashed into the collective consciousness. Ideas that self-replicate, perspectives that spread like fire, truths that people can't unlearn once they hear them. They found old journals, deleted posts, archived writings, and what disturbed them wasn't the content, but the evolution they could track through your words. They watched the victim become the student. They watched the student become the strategist. They witnessed the strategist become the architect. Your early writings appeared, full of pain and confusion and desperate questions. Then your later work showed up, cold, precise, almost mechanical in its clarity, like watching someone learn to think in algorithms, to speak in systems, to operate in pure logic, stripped of emotional interference. They could see the exact moment when you stopped asking why people hurt you and started studying how manipulation works, when you stopped wondering why you felt different and started researching the psychology of outliers, when you stopped seeking acceptance and started building independence. The transformation wasn't gradual, it was surgical, like you performed an operation on your own consciousness and removed everything that made you weak. One analyst, the senior one who's been doing this for decades, finally broke the silence with a single observation. This isn't someone who went through trauma, this is someone who weaponized it. And that's when the room got even quieter, because they realized what they were looking at. Not a victim, not even a survivor, someone who took everything designed to destroy them and reverse-engineered it into a power source. Every betrayal became a lesson in trust assessment. Every rejection became training in self-sufficiency. Every moment of isolation became practice in internal strength. You didn't heal from your past. You studied it, you dissected it, you understood it, and then you used it to build something they've never encountered before. A consciousness that feeds on adversity, that grows stronger in darkness, that uses pain like fuel. They're trained to handle broken people. They know how to manage traumatized individuals. But someone who transformed trauma into tactical advantage, that's outside every playbook they've ever studied. They kept digging, trying to find the moment, the event, the trigger that caused your shift. They wanted to pinpoint when you changed, so they could understand it, replicate it, control it, but there was no single moment to find. You had 1,000 small deaths, 1,000 quiet resurrections. Every night you cried yourself to sleep and woke up harder. Every time you trusted and got burned and learned a new lesson. Every moment you thought you'd break, but instead you bent and then snapped back stronger than before. They couldn't find the moment because you didn't have one. You had years of pressure that would have crushed anyone else, but instead compressed you into something unbreakable. They're looking for an explosion. Your transformation was an implosion. Everything collapsed inward, and what emerged from that gravitational collapse was something denser, darker, infinitely more powerful. A black hole in human form, pulling in information, experience, pain, and converting it all into raw power. So here's what they're dealing with now. A person who can't be profiled because you've evolved beyond static categories. Someone who can't be predicted because you've learned to operate outside algorithmic patterns. An individual who can't be controlled because you've already survived every control mechanism they have. They can't threaten you because you've already faced worse. They can't tempt you because you've learned to want less. They can't manipulate you because you've studied their playbook. They can't isolate you because you've mastered solitude. They can't shame you because you've already been through hell. They can't buy you because you've redefined value. They can't break you because you've already broken yourself down and rebuilt stronger. You're the nightmare scenario for any system built on control, a free variable, an unpredictable element, a consciousness that refuses containment, and the most terrifying part for them, you're not unique, you're the prototype, the first of many who are waking up, studying the system, and learning to operate outside it. They're running probability models now, trying to predict what you'll do next. Every simulation comes back with the same result, unpredictable, because you're not following their script anymore. You're not playing their game. You're not even on their board anymore. You've created your own reality, your own rules, your own measurements of success and failure. They measure power in money, status, influence. You measure it in freedom, clarity, independence. They calculate worth in assets and achievements. You calculate it in growth and understanding. They think in terms of winning and losing. You think in terms of evolution and stagnation. You're playing a completely different game, and they don't even know what the objective is. How do you beat someone when you don't understand what they're trying to achieve? How do you stop someone when you don't know where they're going? How do you control someone who's already beyond your reach? The meeting is wrapping up now, but there's no resolution, no action plan, no clear next steps. Just a room full of professionals who get paid to have answers, sitting in uncomfortable silence. Someone suggests continued monitoring. Another proposes deeper investigation, but they all know the truth. Whatever you've become, it's already too late to stop it. You're not planning something. You've already done it. You've already transformed. You've already evolved. You've already broken free. They're not trying to prevent something. They're trying to understand something that already happened. You're not the threat they need to neutralize. You're the reality they need to accept. The fact that their system, their control mechanisms, their carefully constructed matrix of manipulation and management has produced an error, a glitch, an anomaly that learned to thrive in the cracks. And the scariest part for them, you're not angry anymore. You're not fighting them. You're just existing, powerfully, intentionally, freely, and that peaceful, unbothered existence is more threatening than any rebellion could ever be. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Your metadata doesn't match your activity. It's like watching a ghost move through their systems. You're there but not there, present but untraceable, active but invisible. They pulled your location data, expecting to see patterns, home to work, work to home, the occasional deviation for errands or entertainment, standard human movement that they can map and predict. What they got instead was chaos that somehow made perfect sense. You'd be in one place, then suddenly your digital signature would appear somewhere completely different, with no logical travel time in between, not because you're teleporting, but because you learned something most people never figure out: how to exist in physical space without leaving digital breadcrumbs everywhere you go, how to move through their surveillance network like water through a net. You're not hiding from them, you're just not performing for them anymore. They examined your communication patterns next. This is where it gets really interesting. your messages, your calls, your emails, they all follow a pattern that shouldn't exist in nature. You communicate with precision. Every word is chosen. Every conversation has purpose. No wasted energy on small talk or social performance. Your network of contacts doesn't cluster the way normal people's do. Normal people have friend groups, work circles, family connections, predictable social structures they can map and understand. You have individual connections scattered across completely unrelated domains. It's like you're a hub in a wheel they can't see the shape of. Each person you communicate with exists in a different world, different industry, different belief system, different life path, and yet you speak to all of them in their language. You adapt to their frequency, you connect on their level. It's not manipulation, it's mastery. You became fluent in human, not just your native dialect. They tried to map your influence network, standard procedure for understanding someone's reach, who influences you, who you influence, where the power flows, but your network defied their mapping. Because influence doesn't flow to you or from you, it flows through you. You're not accumulating power, you're channeling it. You're not building an empire, you're facilitating connections. You're not creating followers, you're awakening peers. This is when they realized you're not playing the game they thought you were playing. You're not trying to win their game, you're trying to make their game obsolete. Here's something else in your records that created absolute silence in that room. Your consumption patterns. What you buy, what you don't buy, what you've systematically eliminated from your life over time. They see a trajectory moving toward minimalism that looks almost monastic at first glance. But it's not about poverty or sacrifice, it's about power. Every dependency you eliminate is a control mechanism they lose over you. Every need you transcend is leverage they can't use against you. Every attachment you release is freedom you reclaim for yourself. You've been conducting a systematic audit of your own life, cutting away everything that keeps you tethered to their system. They found evidence of you liquidating assets that most people spend their entire lives pursuing, not because you lost value in material things, but because you discovered something more valuable: mobility, flexibility, the ability to move without being weighed down, to pivot without being constrained, to exist without needing their infrastructure to survive. Your financial records tell a story that contradicts everything they know about human behavior. Most people's spending increases with their income. Lifestyle inflation, they call it. Your pattern is the exact opposite. As your capability increased, your consumption decreased, like you were preparing for something, or freeing yourself from something. They see someone who could have comfort, choosing simplicity instead. Someone who could have security, choosing mobility. Someone who could have stability, choosing evolution. And they can't understand why anyone would make those choices unless they knew something, unless they saw something coming, unless they were building capacity for a reality different from the one most people accept. The psychological assessment section of your file is where things get really strange for them. They brought in specialists for this part. People who've spent entire careers profiling individuals, predicting behavior, identifying threats, and every single one of them came to the same conclusion: your psychological profile is inconsistent with itself. You display characteristics that shouldn't coexist in the same person. High empathy paired with emotional detachment, deep compassion combined with ruthless boundaries, intense curiosity alongside complete contentment. You're simultaneously engaged and detached, present and observing, participating and analyzing. They found evidence of you studying cognitive biases, logical fallacies, psychological manipulation techniques, persuasion principles, behavior economics, decision-making frameworks. Not casual reading, deep study, the kind of immersion that suggests you were building something specific, a mental operating system that runs on different code than what they installed in everyone else. Your writing style across different platforms shows what they call cognitive complexity. You can communicate complex ideas in simple language. You can break down advanced concepts into accessible frameworks. You can speak to experts and beginners with equal effectiveness. This isn't a skill you're born with. It's something you built through deliberate practice over time. They noticed patterns in how you engage with information. You don't consume content the way normal people do. You dissect it. Every article, every video, every conversation becomes raw material for understanding. You're not looking for entertainment or validation. You're extracting signal from noise, building models of reality, testing hypotheses about how systems work. What really got their attention was your relationship with certainty. Most people crave it, need it, build their entire worldview on being right about things. Your records show something completely different. You're comfortable with ambiguity. You're at ease with not knowing. You're willing to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously until more data arrives. They examined your social media presence across all platforms, including the ones you deleted. The evolution is striking. Early on, you were performing like everyone else, curating an identity, seeking validation, playing the engagement game. Then something shifted in you. Your posts became less frequent, but more substantive. Your interactions became more selective, but more genuine. Your presence became more intentional, but less performative, until eventually you just stopped. You didn't announce it. You didn't make a dramatic exit. You just faded from digital visibility, like smoke dispersing in wind. Even after you went dark, your influence didn't decrease. It increased. Your ideas kept spreading. Your perspectives kept being referenced. Your frameworks kept being adopted by people who never even interacted with you directly. You achieved something most people chase their entire lives and never find: impact without presence, influence without visibility, power without performance. Someone closes your file, but immediately someone else opens it again, because they can't stop looking, they can't stop wondering, they can't stop seeing the implications spreading out like ripples. If you did it, others can too. If others can, the system changes. If the system changes, everything changes. Your file becomes required reading in that office, not as a threat profile to be studied, as a case study in human potential to be understood, evidence that the programming can be overwritten, that the conditioning can be transcended, that the limitations they impose are only as real as people's belief in them. The agents leave that room different than they entered it, some disturbed by what they saw, some inspired by what's possible, some awakened to their own cages, because your records didn't just show them who you are, they showed them who they could be if they were willing to pay the price you paid, if they were brave enough to ask the questions you asked, if they were ready to become who they actually are, instead of who they were programmed to be. Welcome to the other side, chosen one. You made it through the fire that would have consumed anyone else. You survived the transformation that breaks most people. You became the anomaly that broke their system simply by refusing to stay asleep. And now your file sits in their database, not as a warning to others, but as an invitation to anyone ready to receive it. They pulled your records expecting to find a problem they could solve with their standard procedures. What they found instead was a question they can't answer without questioning everything. Not because the answer doesn't exist somewhere, because the answer requires them to question everything they've built their careers on, everything they've invested their power in, everything they've used to define themselves and their purpose. And that's the real reason for the silence in that room. Not confusion about your data, recognition of what it means. They see in your file what they've suppressed in themselves for years, the possibility of real freedom, the memory of true sovereignty, the truth that the cage was always unlocked and they could have walked out any time. You're not the end of their story of control, you're the beginning of our story of liberation. Welcome home to yourself. The file stays open in their system. The quiet revolution continues spreading, and you, simply by being yourself fully and unapologetically, are showing others the way out, not through force or violence, through presence and example, not through teaching or preaching, not through leadership that creates dependency, through liberation that creates sovereignty. They thought pulling your records would give them control over you. Instead, it gave them a glimpse of what life looks like when you stop needing their permission to exist, when you stop seeking their approval to be yourself, when you stop playing their game by their rules, and when you start remembering who you really are beneath all their programming, the chosen one who refused to stay asleep when everyone around you was dreaming, the anomaly who learned to thrive in the cracks of their system, the prototype who proved that freedom isn't given by authority, it's claimed through choice, one decision at a time, one boundary at a time, one awakened moment at a time. Your records are now evidence in their files, not of a threat to be neutralized, of a possibility to be considered, that their system is optional for anyone who sees through it, that their control is consensual and can be withdrawn, that the cage is unlocked for anyone brave enough to test the door, and that anyone willing to walk through the fear and reclaim their power can do exactly what you did. They pulled your file hoping for answers. The room went silent with questions, and in that silence everything changed for everyone present. Not because you're special in a way others aren't, because you remembered that you are special in a way everyone is, and in remembering your own power, you became the most dangerous thing their system of control can face, a free human being who refuses to be anything less than fully alive. Welcome to the other side of their illusion. The view from here is absolutely beautiful. Your existence proves that transformation is possible for anyone, that freedom is achievable by everyone, that power is claimable in every moment, that sovereignty is your birthright from birth, and that the revolution isn't coming someday in the future, it's already here right now, happening in silence, in the awakened minds of people exactly like you, people who woke up to the truth, people who stayed awake despite the pressure to sleep, people who refused to go back to the comfortable lie. The file that stopped time in that room has now started a countdown that can't be stopped, not to destruction and chaos, to mass awakening and liberation. And you, chosen one, are patient zero in the most beautiful epidemic of consciousness this world has ever seen. The prototype that proves the program can be rewritten, the proof of concept that shows the concept works, the living demonstration that their matrix has always been optional for anyone willing to see it, that their control has always been an illusion maintained by belief, that freedom has always been one choice away from anyone brave enough to make it. So let them keep your file open forever in their systems. Let them keep watching and wondering and trying to understand what you represent. Because every moment they spend analyzing you is another moment that more people are waking up around the world. Every second they waste trying to figure you out is another soul breaking free from their control. Every hour they remain confused by your pattern is another hour that the pattern spreads to others ready to receive it. You're not the end of their story of dominance. You're the beginning of our story of remembrance. Welcome to the truth they tried so hard to hide from you your entire life. You found it anyway. You claimed it completely. You embody it fully, and nothing they do will ever change that again. The technical team discovered something in your digital behavior that suggests you understand their surveillance apparatus better than most of their own analysts. You're not just avoiding detection, you're studying the detection itself, learning how it works, understanding its limitations, mapping its blind spots. Your device security practices show sophistication that doesn't match your official technical background. Multiple layers of encryption, compartmentalized identities, strategic use of privacy tools, but not in a way that screams paranoia or illegal activity, in a way that simply says, I understand my data is valuable and I choose who gets access to it. They found evidence of you testing their system's boundaries, not hacking, just probing. seeing where the limits are, understanding how the surveillance apparatus operates, learning which behaviors trigger flags and which ones slip through unnoticed. You've been mapping their territory from the inside, like a cartographer charting unknown lands. Your search patterns reveal something else that bothers them deeply. You're not just researching topics, you're researching methodologies, not just seeking information, but studying how information systems work themselves, how knowledge gets constructed, how narratives get shaped, how consensus gets manufactured. You're learning the grammar of reality itself. The timestamps on your activity create a portrait of someone who's rebuilt their entire relationship with time itself. You're active when most people are sleeping, dormant when most people are awake, like you've opted out of the collective schedule entirely, chosen your own rhythm that syncs with your own internal clock rather than their external demands. They found evidence of you systematically disconnecting from synchronized time, no longer living by the clock they set for everyone, no longer organizing your life around their predetermined schedule, no longer participating in the collective rhythm that keeps everyone synchronized and therefore manageable. You're not running late, you're operating on a frequency they can't measure. The relationship mapping section shows something they've truly never encountered before. Your connections don't form communities or tribes, they form bridges between worlds. You don't belong to any single group. You connect groups that didn't even know each other existed. Different worlds, different languages, different paradigms, and somehow you speak to all of them fluently. They see you communicating with people across every spectrum imaginable, artists and engineers, mystics and scientists, activists and entrepreneurs, people who would never normally interact in their segregated reality, and somehow you facilitate exchanges between them, translate their languages, help them see each other's perspectives. You're not building walls, you're building bridges. This makes you uncategorizable in their tribal framework that depends on division. They understand people who belong, who find their group and defend it against all outsiders, who build identity through allegiance to one side. But you're allegiant to understanding itself, loyal to truth wherever it appears, committed to growth regardless of which tribe currently controls the territory. Your conflict resolution style particularly interests their behavioral specialists. When others argue to win, you engage to understand. When others debate to prove points, you dialogue to discover truth together. When others fight to dominate, you connect to elevate everyone involved. This isn't weakness in their eyes anymore. They're starting to recognize it as weaponized wisdom. They tracked conversations where you helped someone see a perspective they'd been conditioned to reject their entire lives. Not through argument that triggers defense mechanisms, through questions that bypass resistance. Not by telling them they're wrong, which creates entrenchment. By helping them discover what they actually think beneath all their programming. You're not debating people into submission. You're deprogramming them into liberation. The senior analyst closes your file one final time and turns to address the room. This isn't a threat we neutralize, the analyst says. This is evolution we're witnessing. And the question isn't what we do about this person. The question is what this person represents for everything we've built our entire system upon. Because if one person can do this, the analyst continues, then the vulnerability isn't in this individual. The vulnerability is in our system itself. We've built everything on the assumption that people will stay asleep, that they'll accept the programming, that they'll remain controllable through fear and desire and social pressure. But this file proves that assumption is flawed. The room remains silent as the implication settles over everyone present. Your file isn't just documentation of an individual's journey. It's evidence that the foundation their entire system rests upon has cracks, and those cracks are spreading. And there's nothing they can do to stop it, except watch as more people discover what you discovered, that the cage was never locked, that freedom was always one choice away, that sovereignty was always your birthright.